Hi, this is Eric from Longbox Review at longboxreview.wordpress.com, where I look at comics past and present. Today I'm going to be taking a look at the DC Comics graphic novel, Superman Earth 1. This was written by J. Michael Straczynski and with art by Shane Davis. And just as important, I think, with this work, inks by Sandra Hope, colors by Barbara, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Ciardo, I'm sure that's not right, lettered by Rob Lee. This came out in November 2010, although it was announced on the DC blog The Source back in December of 2009. And as far as I know, Superman Earth 1 has gotten some pretty positive reviews overall, with a few minor nits from other publications. Overall, I have to say I liked it pretty well. I have some issues with it, but we'll get into those. I wanted to start with, though, and kind of describing the design of the book. It's a hardback, of course. The paperback hasn't come out yet, but this is actually a very gorgeous-looking book, very sturdy. The cover on it looks really nice, good colors. Pages are sturdy. It feels, it's not heavy, but it feels pretty solid in your hands, which I appreciate for a hardback. What I will loosely agree to call a graphic novel. This is not something that I consider a novel per se, but again, we'll get into that in just a little bit. Let's see here. Taking a look first at the copyright page, I found this interesting. Instead of saying Superman, the word spelled out, Earth 1, which is what I would think that they would typically do, they have the S symbolum, the S shield, the stylized S of Superman, the symbol, and then the words Earth 1, published by DC Comics. That's interesting. I don't know why they felt they needed to do that, but there it is. I just thought that was kind of interesting. All right, so I'll give you a kind of just a general plot. So be aware that there may be spoilers here as I go along. Basically, the story starts off with Clark Kent, a young Clark Kent. He looks to be in his early 20s, heading off to Metropolis, the big city. Clark here is depicted as kind of sad in a way. Burdened is probably a better word for it. He seems burdened with something, and we're not sure what that is yet. He walks by people and situations, and he wears this red hood. Of course, this is the substitute for the cape here, but still, you see a lot of kids these days wearing hooded sweatshirts and whatnot, so that seems to fit in. Has a little run-in with a would-be mugger and doesn't hesitate to, use his superpowers to diffuse the situation. And then we get into why Clark is in Metropolis. He's basically looking for a job, and not the typical job you would think, given the history of the character. He first tries out for the Metropolis football team. And of course they look at him and go, "Really, you want to try out?" But of course Clark uses his superpowers, his strength, his speed, and whatnot, to demonstrate that he could be a fantastic, if not the greatest football player that anyone has ever seen. And they keep trying different positions, and every position he tries, he just excels. I like the art in this passage here because it's pretty dynamic. There's a lot of action going on, a lot of interesting close-ups, and but more importantly is the coloring here. I think the coloring of this sequence is really good. It starts off with these really tan or brownish hues, but then as as the point of view shifts, we see more of the football field itself, and we see a lot of green in the pages, and it's a nice contrast. Anyway, so the coach is running Clark through his paces, and then when Clark basically barrels through all of these big guys to make a touchdown, he tells his assistant to call the front office and get a contract down there for Clark to sign in half an hour. And then the guy is saying, but there's still another day of practice. And the coach responds, 29 minutes. And then the guy asks, how much they want to pay him. And the coach says, tell him to leave it blank. We'll put in whatever he wants. And then the next sequence, Clark is at this scientific research firm, I guess, for lack of a better word, because I don't think they ever identify who they are in this. Nope, I'm wrong. It says Neodyne Industries. And to prove just how super smart Clark is, he asks what they're working on and supplies the equations they've been working on to try and figure out this one issue with deriving electricity directly from salt water. And then there's this really cool page of, well, in one way it's cool. So he gives him the equation, and he's just standing there in the background. And I actually did not notice this the first time I read it. In the background are the scientists in the lab consulting with the guy that Clark talked to initially, and they're just standing there looking at the equation, and then they run it through the computer, and then there's a surprise look, and they all look at Clark, and then the guy leaves to come talk to him, and in the meantime the two guys in the lab give each other high fives. I thought that was pretty cool. One of those little things you miss when you just read through something for the first time and don't really examine everything panel by panel or page by page. It's one of the nice things doing these reviews for Longbox Review is that I get to reread stuff and discover things that I missed. It's really nice to do that and then share those things with you. And then we find out why Clark is in Metropolis doing all these things. He's looking to provide for his mother, because in this continuity of Superman, his father, Jonathan Kent, has died. Just as in the movie, and then now in more recent continuity that Jeff Johns has architected. Martha Kent is back at the farm, but she's saying, I don't need anything. You don't need to provide for me. But Clark feels driven and feels he has to do this. So that's why he's in Metropolis. And then there's a cute little couple panels here where Clark has his clothes in a closet, and you see the suit, just a little bit of it, a little bit of the S shield on the front, and they're talking about that. And then we see a quick page showing the other things that he's gone to Metropolis to try. Looks like the stock market, some more scientific work, construction, baseball. It's a nice little montage of opportunities. And then we see the Daily Planet newspaper in one of the newspaper boxes or whatever they're actually called. And Clark sees that and stops as he's passing on the street and buys a newspaper. And that's the next stop. He goes and meets Perry White, who pretty much is depicted as any Perry White I've ever read. And then he meets Lois, who I have to say, Shane Davis did a really good job drawing Lois Lane here. She looks capable, smart, and of course beautiful. She looks like the Lois Lane that I always kind of imagined Lois Lane should look like, so I really like that. And then we meet Jimmy Olsen as well, who is not the bow tie wearing young kid that we usually see. He's probably at least very close in age to Clark in this incarnation, with kind of spiky hair. But he's still the photographer, only he is one of those crazy, I gotta get this shot no matter what kind of photographers, and I like that depiction of him. They should actually bring that into the regular continuity, and maybe they have. I'm actually not sure what Jimmy Olsen is like in the Superman books. I only read the JMS Superman title at the moment, and Jimmy's not really in it right now. So anyway, he tries to get a job at the Planet. Perry kind of blows him off, gives him an application that Clark tosses in the trash for some reason. Doesn't even try after that. And then Clark goes up into space. You get this nice splash page of him just floating up in space, and the Earth is way, way below him. It was nicely done. Like I said, I heard a lot of people talking about or asking the question, why Shane Davis? Who is this guy? Why did DC pick him instead of like an A-list artist? And I have no idea what the answer is to that, but I did like his work on this. His and the inkers' work on this. It's very clean. It's accessible. It's different. It's different from other stuff I've seen. So that may be as good a reason as any as to why Shane Davis was picked for this job. Of course, the quality of the art may have to do too with the fact that they were given at least a year, I'm guessing, on this to work on it. Who knows how long before they actually announced it that work had been started, but they did they did a really good job for the time that they had. I wish all comics could be done that way to some degree. Not that I want to wait a year for a new story to come out, but anyway, back to the story. We get a flashback for when Jonathan and Martha found Clark after his ship crashed, and we discover early on that Clark had super strength. He bends up a tire iron. That's one thing that always bugged me about the Superman stories when he's young and they show him with the super strength. You would think if you found a baby that could bend steel, would you want to pick him up and hold him, especially when he's crying and upset? That would just be really kind of scary, but they never discussed that really. And anyway, the flashback continues with Jonathan telling Clark he looks to be about 8 or 9 or so, that he's not from Earth and he has to be careful. And then, of course, we get the obligatory Clark gets picked on by bullies, and actually, physically, they punch him, which they usually don't show that in other depictions, but he walks away because he knows it's the right thing to do. And then we're back to the present, and Clark has flown back to the Earth, and he's gone to the cemetery to talk to his dad. I really like this scene. The stuff I really like about Superman is his relationship, Clark's relationship with his foster parents. And just a really nice scene between a son and his father, so to speak. And then we find out that the U.S. government knew about the crash, actually has the ship that Clark came in on. It's damaged, of course, and non-functional. They've been trying for the last 20 or so years to get it to work. And there's one person in particular who seems to be in charge of it, Dr. Sandra Lee. I'm not sure if she's actually part of the Superman continuity other than this story, but she's trying to figure it out. And then we cut back to Clark. He's gone back to Metropolis, and his apartment's on fire, and so he super speeds up to there to grab his stuff, and he's brought with him a piece of the ship that his father gave him, that was shown in that flashback, and that's what started the fire, because it's gotten red hot, and everything started blazing. Anyway, he jumps out of there with his super suit, and he flies up out of the way and where no one can see him, and he starts looking into the piece of the ship with his microscopic vision and starts seeing into the atomic structure of it, and that's when it activates and basically overloads his brain, and he falls to the earth unconscious. And then the bad guy of the story shows up, and this is where the story for me got kind of boring, actually. I mean, there's a lot of action going on. It's not that kind of a boring. It's just I've seen this before. Alien invasion, Superman saves the day. That's pretty much the rest of this book. The spin on it is this alien race has come here to kill Kal-El because this world and Krypton were at war with each other, and this alien being, whose name I don't think we ever get to know, but he looks a lot like he looks a lot like Lobo, I guess. He's white skin, he's got these black markings on his face. It just reminded me a lot of Lobo, which again bugged me because there should be an original design. It should be something different than we've seen from other comics before, but it's really not. Anyway, he's come to Earth with his armada to kill the last son of Krypton. In the meantime, Clark is there watching some of the stuff go on, realizing that he needs to do something, and you expect him to put on the suit and go fight the bad guys, go fight the aliens, and he doesn't. He leaves the suit on a rooftop and heads down at super speed to take care of some of the ground troops. I thought that was a nice little thing. He does take a piece of the robots that he defeated back to that lab where he helped the scientists with the equations, and basically tells the guy, please, here's this piece from these robots. Can you guys do anything? Analyze it. Maybe come up with a way to defeat them. And the guy's like, no, sorry, I'm out of here. Alien invasions. I'm going to Cape Cod. And really, this scene is just to kind of push him more into taking the responsibility, taking the initiative to be the hero that his father knew he could be for the world. In the meantime, the Armada is starting to blow up things and presumably kill people, although they do not show that. And then Jimmy is out there taking pictures. He's right up in the action, and the lead bad guy starts to assume that maybe Jimmy is Kal-El because he's not afraid. Everybody else is running away. Jimmy is not. He's there to take the pictures. And I found this was actually a nice little bit, because Jimmy, when he's asked why he would stay and die for a photograph, Jimmy says, we stay and we die for the truth, because that's the only thing worth dying for. And as he says this, Clark is listening in, and Clark's fist starts shaking. And that, I think, was the moment that Clark realized he needed to do more than just surreptitiously take care of these bad guys. But as Jimmy's about to be killed, Clark dives in and saves Jimmy. Lois is there too, seeing this blur defeat these robots and whatnot. Of course, Clark screws up, and because he's now shown himself a little bit, the main bad guy comes out of his ship to confront him, while Clark goes and is looking at his suit and then puts it on. And here we go with the big splash page of Clark in his Superman suit that his mother Martha designed and put together. And this is interesting. So what do you do? You're Shane Davis. What do you do the redesign, if you will, of the classic Superman suit. Well, for one, you don't change much, which is a good thing. I hate it when artists decide to radically change iconic costumes and looks of the heroes I've grown to love over the years. But here, most notably, Shane has put a yellow border around the S-shield on Superman's suit, which is a nice throwback to some of the earlier designs. I'm thinking specifically of the Fleischer cartoon, where the red S is on a black background, which is on a yellow base. And that's kind of what they've done here without the black, of course, which at first when I saw that, I'm like, I don't like that. That doesn't make any sense. But looking at it again and again, rereading this book a couple times now, I like it, actually. I can see that being done on the regular book, and I wouldn't mind that at all. And then we have the boots, the top of his red boots are a little different. They kind of got this more angular, and I don't know fashion. I don't know footwear and how to describe it, but it's kind of got this bezeled look to it. I don't understand that, but I mean, it looks okay. It reminds me more of Wonder Woman's boots, actually, the way the top of the boots are designed. And then the tunic and the pants have this reinforced areas, like on the sides where his ribs are, and then the inside of the tops of his legs. I don't understand that at all. And then he has, of course, the cape with the yellow S on the back, which I've always liked. I know in the latest Superman movie, they took that out, the yellow S off the cape, because it was just too hard to do digitally, I guess, at that time, and it was just this red cape, which I know the S on the back of the cape is redundant and it doesn't really serve a purpose, but I've always liked that, and so that's back in this design. Anyway, so that's Superman's suit in the Earth 1 world. Anyway, so Superman has now arrived, and you get the classic from Action Comics #1, where Superman is holding the car up and smashing it in. We get a similar panel, where he's picked up looks like a tank of some sort. I don't know if that's our tank or it must be an Earth tank or something. But anyway, he's smashing into one of the big robots. So that's kind of the look there. Then the main bad guy arrives and knocks Superman through a building. Looks like, through a skyscraper. Clark catches himself, saying he was caught by surprise and that won't happen again. So then Clark launches himself off another building, right through the building he just came through, which I thought that was an interesting choice. Smashes into the guy as he's smiling, and they start going fist to fist, mano a mano. And it turns out that this guy is just as powerful and actually a much better fighter than Clark, which I kind of expect. It's just because you have superpowers, you're super strong, you're invulnerable, doesn't mean that you can actually fight. And they show that a little bit here, which I appreciate. And the bad guy reveals that the death of Krypton, the destruction of Superman's homeworld, was not an accident. It was an assassination. And that's when we find out about how the two worlds were involved in a war against each other. Sometimes the other world would defeat the Kryptonians, and sometimes the Kryptonians would defeat the other world. Until, the guy tells Clark, until they came to us with a proposition. And they don't reveal who they are, but they give the other world the technology to destroy Krypton, which they do. And then, so he finally ends his little story. Clark just floats there in the sky looking at him and says, And I like this little part. He says, "You know, as a kid reading adventure stories, I always cringed when I got to the part where the bad guy stopped everything he was doing in order to tell the good guy his plans. Never made much sense to me." Bad guy responds, "You're right, of course. It doesn't make sense. Unless, of course, I'm the good guy and you're the bad guy. And I'm trying to keep your heightened senses so focused on what I'm saying that you don't notice anything else until it's too late to stop it." And Clark stupidly starts looking around with his enhanced vision and realizes that there are these drills placed all over the world, which is presumably how Krypton was destroyed as well. And he exclaims, "Son of a," which I also liked. You know, Superman is usually depicted as someone who doesn't use bad language at all. Of course, he really doesn't here, but he comes close, which I liked. Clark then demands that the alien pull back the drills. Of course, he's not going to do that, and so Clark starts to fly off to do it himself, and he gets hit by this red beam of energy, and of course, it's basically a red sun beam that the aliens have. They were very prepared for Clark and his abilities, and they've had 20 years to plan this. So, and here's an interesting scene where, basically the beam shoves Clark down to the ground, and the art shows him, he's on his hands and knees, but the ground, the street around him is shown as crumbling, as if he's being pushed down by a great force, and yet his cape is straight up. I don't understand that. So then Clark is there trapped, and there are the citizens of Metropolis who are just standing around. And he hears them, shouldn't somebody do something? He's the one they're after. Maybe they'll leave us alone if not going anywhere near that thing. It's all his fault anyway. So that's the conversation going on. And then we get another flashback scene where Clark and Jonathan are talking. And you know what? Out of all this stuff, this is probably the best scenes in the book are when Clark is shown talking with his father or with his mother, or when he's talking with Lois and Jimmy. It's not the Superman stuff, interestingly, that I care for in this book. It's the really human interaction that JMS, quite frankly, is very good at writing. It's just the other stuff he's a little lackluster about, as far as comics anyway. So Superman is trapped by the beam. No one's helping him. He can't do it by himself. And then Jimmy gives Lois his camera and tells her to hold on to it. He says, "I don't want it to get damaged," and then he tries to go into the beam to help Superman, and he gets thrown down. He's pressed down by the gravity, I guess. And he can't reach Superman. He can't get out, and then Lois pulls him out. And again, they talk about how Jimmy talks about how he felt like he was being crushed. So you have this weight pressing down, and yet Superman's cape is shown in these panels as being straight up. I don't get it. Interesting visual, but it makes no sense to me. Jimmy concedes there's nothing we can do, and Lois, the typical adventurous, come hell or high water, Lois Lane says, "The hell there's not." She grabs, it looks like a cement truck, and drives it through the beam right by Superman, and it has a chain attached to it. So then that Superman grabs the chain, and he's able to be pulled out as the cement truck is being crushed as it goes through there. So he gets out of the beam, stands up, and he's back. He's ready to go. There's a great splash page of him standing up, all powerful and ready to fly off and take care of business, and then Lois and Jimmy in the background. Anyways, then Superman goes off to fight the bad guy. They actually punch each other's fists in one panel, which is, the classic struggle between two people in a comic, and all this glass is shattering around. I mean, it's a nicely done bit, but I mean, punching each other's fists, yeah, that makes no sense to me. And we get a couple pages here of fighting. In the meantime, the ship that the U.S. Clark's ship that the U.S. government has activates and flies off and comes to where Clark is, and it's through the ship and a kind of Deus ex machina plot device that Clark is able to use the ship and ram it through the alien's main vessel. Because, as the alien had revealed earlier in the typical, well, the bad guy tells us the good guy everything about basically how to defeat him, the bad guy's ship is made of a metal that is virtually impervious to everything except maybe Kryptonian metal, and guess what the ship that Superman is flying is made of. Anyway, Superman gets in the ship and he uses heat vision to just destroy the ship from the inside. The bad guy comes in there, they fight some more, and as they fight, the ship's falling apart, and a big piece of it falls on the guy, and he's impaled. And then Clark jumps out of the ship as the bad guy says with his last breath he still doesn't know about the... And then the ship blows up. Presumably we're talking about who set up the Kryptonians to die, and who will be, presumably, I keep saying that word a lot, I need to stop doing that, who will be the next bad guy in the sequel to Superman Earth 1 that was announced a month or two ago, I believe. And so Clark plummets out of it after being affected again by the red sun radiation inside the ship, but then he regains his abilities and flies off, and he's smiling. He's found his calling. And then we have the last scenes where he's now dressed as Clark again, and he's walking around the city. I'm not sure why he's doing that anyway, but he runs into the guy from Neodyne Industries, and who's back, and says that he wants to offer Clark a job. And then Clark turns him down, of course, after he makes the guy, or tries to make the guy feel bad for his lack of wanting to help out his fellow man. And then he goes and buys the classic Clark Kent suit, although it's not quite as classic. But he buys a tie. He's wearing the suit, puts the glasses on for the very first time. And then there's a splash page of him putting the tie on with the glasses, his hair kind of pulled down, shaggy around his head. And he's smiling in the mirror. And he kind of, to me, looks like a little bit like Val Kilmer in this picture. I'm not sure why they chose to do that, because that's not how he's depicted in the rest of the book. It's a weird inconsistency, and I thought a pretty good piece of art here, for the most part. Anyway, he goes back to the Daily Planet. Just like in other incarnations of Superman, he gets the job at the planet because he got the interview with Superman and not Lois Lane. Of course, Lois is on to him because Clark lets it slip that he heard some things that her and Jimmy had said while out in the battlefield, and she never saw him anywhere. And then she walks off, letting him know that she'll be watching him. Of course, Perry is basking in the attention that the planet's getting because they have the exclusive. And then towards the end, Superman goes to the Arctic with the ship, his Fortress of Solitude to come, I'm sure. And the final pages shows Lois and Jimmy up on the roof of the planet waiting for Superman to fly by. And Lois is talking about how the world has just been profoundly and okay, it's been changed. I can't say the word tonight. It'll be years, decades before we can really get our arms around what this means. And then Jimmy interrupts her because he got the shot. Superman has flown by, and we have the final splash page of Superman and a close-up shot flying in front of the Daily Planet globe on top of the building. The end. There are a few more pages here where we get a Daily Planet report, the interview that Clark Kent did with Superman himself, which I find really interesting because it doesn't read like a newspaper article. It reads like a Rolling Stone interview. And then a little bit of the Daily Planet perspective by Lois Lane about what it means. But that's cut off, and then we get a few pages in the back of the sketchbook by Shane Davis in pencils. And actually, there's one nice picture here just done in pencils with Shane Davis's stylized logo, which looks really good, looks really cool. And that's it. That's Superman Earth 1 in a nutshell. Like I've said before, I enjoyed this. Was it worth buying the hardback version of it for $20? Maybe not. Could wait for the trade that will eventually come out. When this whole idea of the Earth 1 original graphic novels, first Superman this year, and I believe next year we'll get the Batman Earth 1 by Jeff Johns and I can't remember the artist's name, Gary Frank. I don't know if I can stand a whole graphic novel of Gary Frank, but it's Jeff Johns writing, so I'll probably do it. But anyway, when they first announced this, my initial thought was, why do we need yet another depiction or reinterpretation of these classic characters? I mean, the main DC continuity gets redone every 15 to 20 years anyway, and we get a new look at the main characters back in 1985, I think 86, whatever it was, when John Byrne relaunched Superman, and we had the less powered Superman, the Superman whose parents were foster parents were still alive, and had that whole bit. Which I like, by the way. To me, that depiction of Superman has been the best. So I'm not too keen on the latest way of showing Superman and everything about him, the Jeff Johns stuff. But everything old is new again. So anyway, so I didn't care for that concept. It's like, why do this yet again? But apparently, the book sold really well. So much so that they announced a sequel to it that JMS will be writing again. I'm not sure who the artist is on that. I don't think they've announced that, but if they have, I just missed it. In fact, it was supposedly a good deal that, or such a great response that JMS quit writing his run on Superman and Wonder Woman so that he can concentrate on getting the sequel to this graphic novel done. I'm not sure I buy that reasoning for it, even though I have liked JMS's writing on Superman and Wonder Woman both, although I know a lot of people do not. I've enjoyed it so far, but one of the things I did not like about this particular graphic novel was, again, the misnomer that is graphic novel, because this was written to me as the first part of perhaps a trilogy. And maybe that's their goal, but to me a novel has a beginning, a middle, and an end. If you want to say that, if DC wanted to announce that this was the first part of a trilogy, I'd be okay with it, because this reads, like I said, it reads like the first part of something. But it's supposed to be a graphic novel, and it's not. It was setting things up for a sequel, at least one, if not more. And I don't particularly care for that. But will I buy the sequel? Yes, I probably will, because I want to support the opportunity for DC, at least, if not other companies, to do more long-form work, to give us more comics with the quality, and you can argue that with this to some degree, but the quality of this, I mean, this is a beautiful looking book. I mean, it looks really nice. It'll look great on my shelf. It'll be nice to pull out to show other people what comics can look like and what they can be, what kind of stories can be told with them. So I want to support that. Whether or not I buy the hardback of the sequel, I'm not sure. I don't know. Actually, I usually wait for the trade for these kind of things. But I saw it at the comic book shop. There was one left when I asked about it, and on a whim I just bought it, just because I wanted to read it during the time that it was first out, to be experiencing it along with the feedback and the hype and all that. I kind of wanted to be involved in that from the get-go. And I did plan to do this audio review of Superman Earth 1 much sooner, but unfortunately life and the holidays got in the way, and I'm now 3 months out from the last episode of Longbox Review. Anyway, but here I am doing this, and I think that's about it. Yeah, I enjoyed it. You should read it if you have a chance. If not, you can borrow mine. Ha! Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode of Longbox Review. I'll be trying to do this more frequently, at least once a month, if not more. And I hope, I've been working on a friend of mine to do a guest spot on here, because I think we'd have some great conversations about comics and everything related about comics. And so with that, thank you, and I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget that you can read my reviews of comics past and present at longboxreview.wordpress.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at longboxreview, all one word. Thanks for listening.